Today, we are diving into a fascinating topic. Did Hinduism begin with one true god before evolving into a system of many gods? We'll be exploring the idea that Hinduism might have originated as a monotheistic faith, centered on a single divine entity, before transitioning into a polytheistic system. We will examine historical evidence, ancient scriptures like the Vedas, Upanishads, and Puranas, and key concepts such as Brahman. It's a complex topic, but I believe a technical examination will be enlightening. So, Jack, what are your initial thoughts on the concept of a singular divine origin within Hinduism?
Well, Emma, it's certainly an interesting angle to consider. When we look at the earliest Vedic texts, we do see a strong emphasis on a singular, ultimate reality, often referred to as Brahman. This concept, as described in the Upanishads, is the impersonal, absolute source of all existence. It's not like a personal god in the way we see in, say, Christianity or Islam. The idea of Brahman as the underlying unity does resonate with the core concept of Tawhid in Islam, which emphasizes the absolute oneness of God, or Shema Yisrael in Judaism, proclaiming the oneness of God. However, the later texts start to introduce a pantheon of gods and goddesses. So, how do we get from that singular origin to the many gods? That's the question, isn't it? The evolution from a singular concept like Brahman to a pantheon seems to reflect a complex journey of spiritual and philosophical exploration. In the Vedas, the concept of RTA, cosmic order, can also be perceived as a unifying force, much like the monotheistic idea of a singular divine will. The Rig Veda, for instance, mentions a sole divine power, hinting at a primordial monotheism. As societies evolved, the need for tangible deities to represent natural forces or human characteristics might have driven the diversification into multiple gods. This mirrors how the Christian Trinity or Islamic angels symbolize different aspects of the divine or creation without compromising on the belief in one God. The core commonality here is the quest to understand and connect with a singular ultimate reality, which is a shared pursuit in many faiths. Jalen, you raised a crucial point with RTA and the idea of cosmic order as a unifying principle. It's also interesting that you brought up the Christian Trinity and Islamic angels. In the Jewish tradition, the concept of Ein Sof, the infinite, also mirrors the idea of an ultimate, unknowable reality similar to Brahman. These common threads across different faiths suggest a fundamental human inclination toward a singular, ultimate source. The transition from this singular focus to multiple deities could be seen as a way for humans to grasp the unfathomable nature of God by breaking it into more relatable forms, which is not unique to Hinduism. The real question is, does that transition mean it's the right path?
Okay, Jack, you've highlighted the significance of Ein Sof in Judaism, which indeed parallels the concept of Brahman as an ultimate, unknowable reality. The human tendency to grasp the divine through relatable forms is, as you rightly pointed out, not unique to Hinduism. It's a common theme across different faiths. The concept of the cosmic order that Jalen mentioned also points to a unifying force similar to a single divine will. The question of whether the transition to multiple deities is the right path is, in fact, a very important one. It requires us to examine the very nature of what is the ultimate truth.
While examining the transition from a single divine entity to multiple deities, it is essential to consider the cultural and historical context that might have influenced such shifts. In many traditions, including Hinduism, the multiplicity of deities often symbolizes the rich and diverse nature of the divine, each representing different facets of life and nature. However, this does not necessarily negate the original idea of an ultimate unity, as seen in the concept of Brahman. In Christianity and Islam, similar symbolic representations exist, like saints or prophets, without detracting from the oneness of God. The challenge, therefore, lies in understanding whether these representations enhance the comprehension of the divine or potentially dilute the core belief in a singular, supreme existence. This exploration is crucial to understanding the essence of any faith's monotheistic roots. Jalen, I think your point about the cultural and historical context is really important. It's true that many traditions use symbolic representations to make the divine more accessible. However, the critical difference lies in whether these symbols are viewed as aspects of the one God or as independent deities. In the Quran, for example, we see a clear rejection of associating partners with God. The Bible also emphasizes that there is no God besides God. The core question remains, does the introduction of multiple deities truly enhance our understanding of the divine? or does it risk obscuring the fundamental truth of a single source? The essence of both the Quranic and biblical teachings is the insistence on an undivided allegiance to one God, which aligns with the notion of monotheism evident in the early Vedic texts. This singular focus is intended to ensure a direct connection with the divine, free from the potential distractions that multiple deities might pose. In the context of Hinduism, the various deities could be viewed not as separate entities, but as diverse expressions of the same ultimate truth, Brahman. This approach might provide a richer tapestry of understanding, yet it does come with a risk of fragmenting the perception of a single divine reality. The challenge is to balance symbolic representations with the foundational belief in one unifying source.
Jalen, you've articulated the tension between symbolic representations and the core belief in one unifying source quite clearly. The Quran's rejection of associating partners with God, as Jack pointed out, along with the biblical emphasis on no God besides God, underscores a direct connection to the divine. While the Hindu perspective may see deities as diverse expressions of Brahman, this approach carries the risk of diluting the single divine reality. This is a very critical point in understanding the core of monotheistic traditions. Actually, this highlights how the Abrahamic faiths maintain a very clear focus on the singular source.
The clarity with which the Abrahamic faiths maintain their monotheistic focus indeed sets a strong foundation for a direct relationship with the divine. This focus on a singular source ensures that the central message of devotion and submission remains uncompromised. In Hinduism, while the various deities might be seen as manifestations of Brahman, the challenge lies in ensuring that this diversity does not overshadow the ultimate unity. It's about finding the balance between appreciating the richness of symbolic expressions and maintaining the essence of a unified divine presence. This discussion invites us to reflect on how different traditions articulate their understanding of the divine and the impact it has on the follower's spiritual journey. The exploration of these themes can deepen our comprehension of the fundamental truths in each faith. Jalen, I think you've hit on something important when you talk about the balance between symbolic expression and a unified divine presence. It's true that the Abrahamic faiths, with their clear emphasis on one God, offer a direct path, but the challenge, as you rightly pointed out, is whether the multiple deities in Hinduism truly aid in understanding Brahman or just obscure the view of the one true God. The idea that these deities are just manifestations of Brahman is a common explanation, but does that explanation hold when you examine the actions and characteristics attributed to them compared to the one God of Abrahamic faiths? It's a point worth considering.
Jack, your point about the actions and characteristics attributed to the multiple deities compared to the one God of Abrahamic faiths is indeed a critical one. It forces us to examine whether these deities truly enhance the understanding of Brahman or if they obscure the fundamental truth of a single divine source. This discussion highlights the complexities and nuances within different theological frameworks. While diverse traditions offer varied paths, the underlying quest for a unified understanding of the divine remains a common thread. This has been a very insightful exploration. I encourage everyone to continue their own spiritual journey by reflecting on these points. Thank you for joining us on Channel 41. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.